Welcome to the Raw Spotlight podcast, where we feature inspiring leaders in the B2B space and share their unique stories. Let's get started with the show.
Hi, everybody. I'm Victor Quinn, your host of the Ready Artwork Raw Spotlight, where we featured leaders from B2B businesses, niche markets, large-scale brands, local businesses, and public sector entities to share their innovative strategies and inspiring success stories. You'll hear our previous guests, such as Diamond Bar Council member, past past mayor, Andrew Chow, as well as some other of our key guests that are on our show regularly. So look forward to adding Josh McIntire to our roster of wonderful guests. And today's message is brought to you by Ready Artwork, where we deliver uniquely tailored B2B digital marketing services to facilitate the long-term growth of your business. At Ready Artwork, we combine data-driven insights with innovative design to help your business thrive in the digital age, from SEO to digital advertising to web development and email marketing. We have experts who help companies uncover growth in unexplored and extraordinary ways. To learn more, visit readyartwork.com. Let Ready Artwork discover your full potential. I'm going to jump right in and introduce today's guest. So our guest today is Josh McIntire, a dynamic leader in real estate and beyond. Josh is the president and co-founder of McIntire Real Estate Incorporated, a full-service firm in Arcadia, in California. With over 11 years of success, his firm manages over $1 billion in assets, including 2,000 doors and 70 employees, making a significant impact in the industry. With expertise in commercial and residential real estate, investment management, and quantitative analysis, Josh's background includes time at Merrill Lynch and Wilshire Associates, where he consulted for major clients like CalPERS and the U.S. Armed Forces, managing over $480 billion in portfolios. He also helped develop global investment performance, standardized GIPS composite software. Josh is CEO of Truth Technologies, a SaaS property management company, and leads the Public Safety Assistant Foundation, supporting law enforcement with data removal services. Outside of business, Josh is a triathlon enthusiast, scuba diver, mentor, and advisor. He holds a financial degree from San Diego State University and is active in various professional organizations like National Apartment Association, Urban Land Institute, and SDSU Alumni Association. Welcome, Josh.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we're just going to jump right into some questions, and then, we'll let the audience learn more about you. So number one, Josh, what inspired you to co-found McIntire Real Estate, and how did your work at Merrill Lynch and Wilshire Associates help you prepare? Did recurring revenue influence your vision of the company?
Yeah. So, this was back in pre-2008 times, and right before all the financial crisis hit. So coming out of that time, or when the financial crisis hit, time got tough. And career-wise, I had already left Wilshire and was kind of bouncing around. I knew I wanted to be in real estate. I had read all the Rich Dad Poor Dad books and Millionaire Next Door, things like that. And with a finance degree, I had originally thought I wanted to go into portfolio management. But when I started learning about real estate and commercial real estate and financial numbers, cap rates, a lot of the stars aligned for me. And I had jumped into the industry in 2007, and right when everything collapsed, literally, it was probably within a few months, and I had $35,000 in the bank and blew through that, and was literally just month to month trying to figure out what I could do to make it. I knew I was where I needed to be in terms of the industry, and I knew I wanted to be there long term. And so it was just a matter of trying to figure out how to make it work. And it probably took 4 or 5 years from that point on of just constantly failing. Worked with some boutiques, tried to hustle some deals, do some leases, try to do some sales, work with a couple small companies, a couple startups, and nothing really gained traction. So it was constantly just failing forward. And then in 2012, I had met my wife, who was also in real estate, and we obviously weren't married at the time, but we just decided that we were going to start our own business together, have a family business. And again, this was coming out of all the craziness of the Great Depression, recession. And we had a 2-bedroom apartment. We turned one of the bedrooms into a little pseudo office, a couple desks that we got set up in there. And we kind of just started working away. She was working on some short sales and at the time, and I was doing some property management. And we had agreed at the time that I would kind of focus on bringing in some property management business because it was reoccurring. We got this condo in Marina Del Rey. It was our first property that we managed, and the owner offered to pay us $50 a month. And so we were like, I looked at my fiance at the time, and I was like, we should do more property management. And she was like, well, I don't know much about it, and we're doing a lot of short sales and got a lot of leads, and those would bring in commissions anywhere from 10,000 to 30,000, but they were still far in between because banks were still kind of up in the air, not knowing what they were going to do, not knowing whether they're taking back properties, foreclosing, where people are going, how there's no buyers, no buying. So she would have files for 8, 9, 12 months with no traction, right? And so I was sitting back and I was like, well, I don't know how this is going to work, right? We have these one-off deals, maybe leasing something here and there, maybe do a sale, maybe do a commercial property. And I looked at this little $50 a month that just kind of fell on our plate. And I was like, well, this is every month, right? We don't have to worry as much. If we can get enough of these ones, then we'll have monthly revenue. We don't have to worry on commission because commission only is very tricky for me, especially wanting to have a family and me trying to plan the long term. It was very, very challenging for me to wrap my head around that coming from that period of time. And so we kind of agreed that I would focus on property management and she would still work some of the short sales and different sales transactions. And so we got that one. And then we got a 6-unit property in Highland Park, which brought us, I want to say, like $150 a month that we still manage today.
And 6 stores?
6 stores. Yeah, no, at the time, I think the total was around 150. Wow. It was something cheap, right? We were like the new guy.
You just had to get in there. Yeah.
It was just her and I. Like, we had no staff, we had no virtual assistants, nothing, none of that was around at the time.
Yeah.
And so we were just kind of like, hey, let's just keep going, right? And I think that put us at like $200 a month, right? And so then we just started taking on any properties we could get, right? So we were taking on properties in gang territories, bad neighborhoods. I had a Lexus at the time. It was an older one, but still, I got rid of that so I could get a white Honda that was neutral colors. Going in certain areas, you couldn't
blue or red
neighborhood, and a little white 2-door Honda, and that was kind of the intro to real estate, why real estate, and how we kind of started down this journey of management. And we designed the business based on full service. So we do sales, we do leasing. Coming out of that time, we didn't want to give up business if we didn't have to. We protected referrals, but if a business came our way, we wanted to be able to service it and keep clients in, and service all aspects of the transaction. And that's kind of how we got started.
Okay, so we're going to switch to some of the bigger stuff that you've done, right? From consulting big clients like CalPERS and U.S. Armed Forces. Were there any key lessons there that you learned and applied to real estate work today?
Yeah, so that was kind of my out of college finance hat. Wanted to be a big portfolio manager, trade stocks, do all this stuff, run a portfolio, and worked in Santa Monica, worked at a company there, Wilshire Associates, and was part of a team. Where I had my cubicle and was an analyst and a senior analyst there. And it was just interesting because, you had a team structure. So you had obviously kind of like the head consultant, and then you had, different support staff all the way down at different vice president levels and things like that. And there's multiple teams throughout the company, multiple departments, but, huge, huge company where you kind of get lost in the culture of, of things. And, it was just different, right? I'm very entrepreneurial myself, and I've been that way since I was 14, 15, just hustling sales around the neighborhood and painting fences and things like that to make money. And that that kind of day-to-day routine was very challenging for me to plan 5, 10 years down the road. And I was looking at a lot of the steps and a lot of the planning there on having to go get an MBA and having to get certain internships and top 5 schools and this and that, and come out of those places with certain jobs at bigger corporations or investment banking firms. And it was just different, and it was a different speed and a different lifestyle of career.
So, so fair to say, like, it's not stuff you carried over to your current organization. Like, is there things you'd learn not to do?
I learned a lot about like some of the stuff that we work with, like CalPERS and those big pension fund plans. Was the whole goal was not to lose money, right? Because you have retirement that are on the line,
Right.
and so a lot of the management of different money managers was to make sure that they're performing and hitting benchmarks. So to me, it kind of relates now to like a lot of KPIs that we implement, and trying to make sure our departments are running off performance benchmarks and having minimum criterias that they have to hit. And we review those every week in our leadership meetings, and we're making sure that things aren't dipping in certain areas.
Right.
And I'm still learning a lot about that in terms of like dashboards and how to streamline it and like be more efficient from a leadership and high level, like C-level type position, without jumping into the weeds and trying to fix and do work for people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good transition. Next one is really about how real estate is changing, right? So real estate's constantly changing, some bigger than others, but how do you stay ahead of trends that keep the organization, McIntyre, competitive in the market?
Sure.
Yeah.
So a lot of the trends are all around obviously tech, right? Everybody's trying to throw tech at every small little intricacy of real estate, right? Even things like inspections, right? You're seeing like drone services and wanting to send drones up and fly over and do
Right.
deliveries and pictures and all this stuff, and all the way down to like
Cross space. I've seen the cross space ones too, where they drive the tank. Yeah.
and even outsourcing obviously overseas and international staff, and trying to provide to the smallest detail of phone call answering with outsource and with data tracking. And so everyone's trying to carve up a lot of spaces and try to have third party apps or third party this, and make things kind of not holistic as all in one type software. And so you're seeing a lot of companies that are really trying to be the best at a portion of it. So it makes it a little challenging for us as a company, because we don't want to have a dozen different softwares that we run. And the more we run, the harder it is for staff to continually to perform, because they're like, what software is this in, or how does this work? And they all need to talk. And if one kind of goes down, then the whole flow of processes kind of breaks down. And then you spend a lot of time trying to fix things and making sure, API
Right.
connected properly. And it's just like, it's a whole kind of different management style for the business. Whereas before, it was just really just staff coming to the office and, we'll hash things out in the conference room.
Mm-hmm. So what do you guys do to kind of stay ahead of all that things that?
So we're trying to find, kind of like the leaders in those different app spaces that we feel we can scale with, and that we can invest our time and our staff, so that because we still need staff. There's still, for us, it's a hands-on touch and a lot of physical aspects. Like, we have to visit properties. We still have to connect with tenants. A lot of tenants don't bring checks into the office. A lot of our clients are not as tech savvy, right? Like apartment owners, they've owned property, some of them for 30, 40, 50 years, right? And they still like to touch paper. And so there's a blend of it, and we still will always have human touch to it, right? And we had 2 clients come in yesterday out of the blue, right? They just want to sit down. They just want us to print out the paper and sit down and show it to them.
Nice.
And so trying to blend the tech and the personal touch and incorporate how to scale both without overdoing, the
Right.
side, controlling that cost.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like there is a lot of people overdoing technology and making things overly complicated. We want to keep the human aspect of it to kind of stabilize everything.
Yeah, there's a bit
Okay.
that's a big part of it in the real estate side, and the other two, the nonprofit and the Truth Technologies, the SaaS products,
Yeah.
all tech, right? All outsourced, all automation, all online. Software products, no inventory, nothing, right? So we'll talk about that.
Yeah. All right. So you've grown the company to manage 1 billion in assets. That's not a small feat by any stretch, right? What are some of the biggest challenges, getting there? And then also, how do you balance this with your family life? I know you're a big family guy.
Yeah. So in terms of growing, we obviously were kind of from the ground up, right? It was
Sure.
just like we grew by trying things, right? There was nothing we didn't try, and we would test things, and we would test softwares, we would test reports, we would test communication channels, we would test systems and templates, even down to like, hey, Google template has a thing where you can just click on it and send it quickly, right? And there's a checklist that you could build in. So we're just constantly trying to test workflows, right? And those testings and trying to really understand the software. So we use Appfolio. It's a good plug for them, right?
Yeah.
And we would learn the softwares. And since we were spending so much money on them, I wanted to know to the full extent of how that software worked, right? So I would be using all the features. And then as I'm meeting with people out there, I'm using a lot of features that other companies who are using the same software, but they aren't using all the features, right? Because they're either not tech savvy enough to learn it, or they didn't spend enough time to really just dig in and read about it, learn the system. And so, networking, just out there meeting with business owners and getting referrals with agents and brokers and insurance companies and, everybody in all these different industries, just gradually just constantly meeting people and then kind of demonstrating that we're the expert in the space and we're utilizing all the features that could save them time and money by using us. We just gradually started getting referrals. And then whenever we got the referral or we got a new client, we would send a thank you letter to whoever referred it. I'd handwrite every time. I still did. I sent one out last week, and it's on nice stationery. And then we would make sure that we had a game plan for those new clients that came in to make sure that they were kind of being touched and serviced, overly serviced, so that one, the referrer felt good and got positive feedback.
Yeah.
And then we could potentially get another referral from that new client and more referrals from the old client because we didn't have a budget for marketing, right? So, I mean, even to today, like we don't market really because I've tried and, a lot of it has been spent on Yelp ads and different pay-per-click campaigns and SEO this and print ads. And, we've again tested, we tracked, and it's like for the dollar amount for us, goes back to the personal relationship where, a lot of these property owners, they want to come in and know who they're working with. If they're going to hand us a $10 million property to manage, they don't want to just hand it over to some random person, right? They want to
Right.
know this is their inheritance, their retirement. This provides for their family, their kids, their grandkids. They're going to pass this down. Like this is like their whole life, right? Some of these
Right.
clients can work their whole life on these things and self-manage. So, just kind of building from the ground up and treating clients with, how we would want to be treated. Like it's their money is our money was one thing. And in terms of balancing with clients or with family, it was very hard at the beginning because I was, we were such a early stage.
Right.
baby stages of the company, and everything was me wearing hats. I was helping with the accounting and the sales and the onboarding and the customer service and everything that you could possibly think of when you're a new business. And so trying to replace myself and grow out of that, and then starting a family and then having kids, it was a struggle at the beginning, finding the balance. And then for me, once we started really being able to afford to hire good people, and know that we can trust them and they're reliable on certain things, and I could carve things off my plate, I was able to start getting more time back to kids, going to sporting events, doing things like that, date nights, but trying to reading books on all that, and articles, and talking with groups, and that's how I met you, and this is
Right.
just
Yeah.
trying to understand every month in and month out on how to provide better in all areas of life, not just business, because otherwise you'll get burned out.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's very relatable to hopefully a lot of our listeners. Probably going to be having similar issues, homegrown business, and trying to balance everything. So you mentioned earlier about Truth Technologies, right? So you're CEO of both McIntyre, Kingstone, and Truth Technologies. How do you manage leading two companies? I mean, one is enough, right, for most people, but you're running two, or actually three. Um, and how does recurring revenue influence your decision when running the two?
Sure. Uh, so years ago, I went through a Tony Robbins course, and it was about, he runs like 10 businesses or however many businesses he runs, probably more. And, a lot of it was chunking down time and having boxes or compartmentalizing and having certain number of to-dos or, um, tasks, responsibilities within those, and making it simple, right? And so I've gotten to a really good point where I can kind of visually structure what a company should look like and what it should run. And it's almost like my mental dashboard that I see in my head. And I'm trying to get that onto a TV around the office so that those KPIs or those important tasks are constantly in front of people. And but I can kind of see them now with the experience that I've kind of developed on where businesses should kind of be focused, right? You have your accounting, you have your marketing and leasing, or marketing,
Yeah.
and you have your people. And so kind of just always checking in, right? And so I feel like for me, I'm kind of the nudger, so to say. So I'm constantly processing and brainstorming the visionary of what things need to be done and where they need to be going and what direction they need to be heading. And so as certain things filter to the top of priority, I really had to train myself to not get into emails, not get in all the weeds, and really focus on the big projects that will keep things moving forward, and then delegating out the actual work, right? Finding the right people who can step in and handle a lot of the execution while I kind of keep pushing the snowball down the hill, and it just gradually will get a little bigger and it'll get a little bigger. That's always my mindset with these, whether it's a business or a project. It's constantly just pushing it forward and trying to envision the things that could go wrong and trying to envision what plan we need who can help fix the things that need to get done.
Cool. So focusing on the big picture,
Big picture,
no
always.
matter. Yeah. Okay. You mentioned about something about painting fences, right? So how's your upbringing or family shaped your career in real estate and business, and how important has balancing work and family been for you?
Yeah. So I think that was probably one of the biggest influence of me being an entrepreneur, because when my parents divorced when I was 10, and so my dad left, and then my mom was left to raise me and my three sisters. And so growing up, we didn't have, my mom went from being a stay-at-home mom with no college education or no college degree, and moving out from Louisiana. My family's from the South, out here for my dad to, pursue a career in the entertainment industry. So when he left, my mom was kind of like left holding the bag. And, it was just her having to go find a job. She got employment, I believe, at Blue Cross at the time. And so it was something that was going to bring in money for the family. But now all of a sudden you have, 4 kids, single mom. And so we weren't really the family that was kind of like doing all this stuff, like really kind of, like we weren't getting cars when we turned 16, right? We weren't getting new clothes every year for when it was school time. We would get some stuff, we would get the backpacks and the crayons and pencils or whatever we needed that was the minimum. But
Yeah.
I needed more stuff. Like if I wanted to have a new outfit, um, I might get one or something. But if I wanted something more, like I needed to save and work for it. And so I kind of learned, I think, from, my mom was very encouraging, saying that I could be anything I wanted and do anything I wanted. Great, you're great. But having to really apply that and be like, okay, well, what does that really do for me? I need to go figure out how to turn that into something. And so as jobs came up around the neighborhood, whether I'm painting or digging holes or um, babysitting, whatever it was, I can make $40 here. I can make $20 here. And then I could go buy some shoes, right? And so I kind of figured out at a young age that, hey, if I work hard or I find a way to make some money, I could go get the things I want quickly. And so that was kind of how I realized that my hard work would pay off and I didn't have to wait on a paycheck or anyone else.
That sounds like at the beginning, right, where you were saying how you were more focused on the $50 rather than the giant payout that might come next month or 3 months later, and how you had to kind of grow up in that situation where things were just not abundant. You had to work for it. So I could kind of see the connection there in terms of how you were thinking and trying to build stability.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting now to see, like kind of the world of, families that really have plans in place. They have like family trusts, and they have retirement accounts and, 529 kids education plan. I mean, when I was in high school, and I think it was junior or whatever senior year, when everyone was applying for college, right? I I didn't even know, right? I didn't even know people were applying. And so when offers came back on where you got accepted to, everyone's like, oh, I got into Santa Barbara and I got into Cal State Northridge, and I got into these different schools. Like they're like, where'd you get into? I was like, I didn't even apply. I didn't even know that I was supposed to apply to college. Like that
Right.
was kind of like just kind of the different world. I wasn't kind of exposed to a lot of like bigger thinking, right? Bigger business thinking, estate planning, like anything like that of like
Yeah.
saving. So kind of
Yeah.
had to learn all that, but I've really kept an open mind of listening and being able to, try to understand that every person that I come across, has an experience and they probably have some wisdom and some knowledge
Yeah.
that they could share that I can learn from and grow that I didn't grow up having.
Yeah. That's awesome. Like, very similar background. But so um what major personal sacrifice have you made while building your business? So some of the war stories, if you will, right? And how do you make sure to self-care for you and your family, especially during these tough times as you were building?
Um, Major war stories, are probably, we just reinvested pretty much most of everything that we did like into the company, right? We were all in, and I was hustling on the side to try to make money, selling things on eBay, whatever we could do, right? But just kind of reinvesting and building, and so vacations, trips. You see people going on different things, extravagant birthday this or family getaways here. Like we never really did that kind of stuff. Even when we were starting the business and we were getting married, having kids, we weren't really doing any of that kind of stuff because it was all just kind of like grind, grind. And we're fortunate now we have more flexibility and more options, but it's much different than a 9 to 5 or a salaried career position, right? And so one thing that I valued was flexibility and freedom. That was one of my biggest biggest things growing up, and especially coming from the cubicle life where I was like, every day I would go to that work, and we overlooked the Santa Monica beach, and every day there were people playing volleyball, riding bikes, and running on the beach. And
Yeah.
I'm just sitting there working every day, watching people play on the beach all day long, and I couldn't do it, right? And so that was kind of this thing, right? And so
Yeah.
I knew that I didn't want to just go play on the beach, but I knew that I wanted to have the flexibility to kind of come and go and create, build. And
Right.
so, the things that I feel like I gave up in terms of steady salary, and I get back in terms of, higher long-term pay, higher value for business, and then flexibility of time so I can go to, the kids' birthday parties and, the school plays and coach soccers and things like that.
Cool. So the interesting thing I saw is that you're into triathlon and scuba diving and things like that. So how do you balance personal passion with work, and how do these activities support your well-being as a business owner?
Yeah. So, I've kind of scaled back on a lot of that with 3 kids now.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but when I had more time, I was doing a lot more active things just to get out, be outside, and to kind of explore. Uh, it's funny with kids, I've gotten really risk averse in anything. I'm hyper aware. Like I don't want trees falling on me, or like, cars jumping curbs and hitting me, because I have kids that I have to be accountable for, and I take being a dad very serious, and I love it. Um, and so, the balance, balance for me is trying to stay healthy and active so that I can keep up with them. And it kind of goes back to my long-term planning and thinking mind, right? A different hat that I put on, and I want to be able to, uh, be there as they grow, to play with them, and to just keep up with them as much as I can.
Yeah.
And it kind of hit me early on, because I would be working literally from 8, 9 in the morning till 12 at night, right? And a lot of times I'd catch myself really not taking much breaks, right? And so I've always been pretty active and healthy and strong. But over the months and the years of doing that, of sitting in a computer for so long, just kind of grinding away,
Yeah.
my hips start going, and then, hamstrings get tight, like I started to feel very sluggish, right? And I was just like, okay, that's a problem. And I didn't want to get too bad where it's like I lost myself. And so I knew at that point, when I started to feel pain, just even getting out of bed or walking upstairs, I knew it could be different. And I just started kind of going a different direction and making sure health for myself was a priority, especially for my kids who are going to need me for a long time.
Yeah, definitely. So share with us something surprising about your daily routine or work-life balance, right? And how do you prioritize that into your self-care that we just talked about?
Yeah. So last November, I started doing the 75 hard challenge, and I've
Okay.
shared it with you. And I haven't had any alcohol, really much sugar since Thanksgiving of last year. And not that I was a big user of anything. I was pretty self-controlled, but I just never really was like, I knew sugar is kind of my thing, right? I stress sugar. I look for sugar, and we have M&Ms and sweets all around our house. Constantly, it's like I could just go to the bathroom and eat like M&Ms, right?
Yeah.
And this is my thing. And so I was just like, you know what, I need to kind of push the envelope a little bit here. And so I did the 75 hard, and that got me through to like February. And then there's level 2, and I did that, and that got me into March. And then there's a 30-day break that you're supposed to take to try to test your self-control.
Well, can you give our audience like a quick overview of what 75 Hard is?
So 75 hard is an app. I forgot the guy's name, but he's out of Missouri. You could look it up, and it's
Yeah.
you basically have to accomplish a handful of tasks every day. And so it's a challenge for no cheating, right? Every day. And so you got to drink a certain amount of water, you have to exercise, you have to read, you have to follow a diet. Um, I think there's 6 or 7 items that you go through. And so it was, it was a challenge. I'm very competitive.
Yeah.
And I knew I've tried different programs with weight trainers, all these different like walking
Yeah.
programs, all these random things. And so I was just like, okay, let's try this. Right. My sister did it. It worked out great for her. And so it fed into my competitiveness, and it fed into kind of my discipline of just trying to be a little bit better and have a habit every day. And so when March came around and I was kind of in between, like the program had ended, I went like straight back into eating whatever I wanted, right? Watching TV, laying around, right? So all these different things where before I was just moving, I was trying to be active, I was just watching what I was
Yeah.
doing. So that kind of made me realize, like, for me, I need to follow some sort of program, right? I need to follow some sort of like self-discipline, self-accountability program, whether it's by myself or with other people. With other people, it's a lot easier because you have people
Yeah.
checking in on you. And so since then, I've kind of got back on to like my own little like 30, 45-day things. And so right now I have one other friend who he has a business in Riverside, and
Uh-huh.
him and I are kind of on a 45-day health and wellness challenge. And so every day we have to do a selfless deed for someone. We
Uh-huh.
have to drink 80 ounces of water. We have to read 10 pages. We have to accomplish 5 tasks, whatever those are. We have to exercise for 45 minutes, do 150 sit-ups, follow a diet, and no alcohol. So that's my day. And I use this app called TickTick, and I just track it every day. And I don't know if you see it or not,
No, it's not really sure. It's just a white screen right now.
but,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it's, you can create your habits. It's a habit tracking app. And so
Nice.
I get the satisfaction of like, hey, I get to check off something. I'm a box checker
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
check things off. And then I get to plan my day. And I realized
Uh-huh.
that in the morning, everyone talks about the morning, but it's kind of
Yeah.
true. I found win the morning and get a lot of your stuff done in the morning, you don't necessarily have time that could, steal and put stress on you. So
Yeah.
I try to front load the morning and knock out a lot of my stuff.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah. All right. So this other one kind of switches back to you as a reflecting, right? So what advice would you give your younger self starting out in real estate? Would you emphasize balancing recurring revenue with personal care or family life and everything? What would you tell your younger self about all these things we talked about today?
Am I married or am I single?
You are you today. You're talking to a single young when you started the business, right? Like, what would you tell yourself?
I would probably tell myself that, um, uh, that's a good question. Uh, I would probably tell myself to read as much as I can to be the expert on the subject, right?
Yeah.
But don't flaunt the expertness, right? Be humble and be able to have the conversations with the big players, right? So most of the time there's big fish in the pool, and they look at the small young people as like they need to earn their stripes, right? But if you can hang in the conversations and carry yourself in a way where you can fit in with the big players or relate or provide value to them, then they'll accept you and you'll get a lot more business a lot quicker. And people will throw you bones and want to help you. Right. If my younger self was just messing around and not taking things serious, it would take a lot longer to get to where I needed to be. Um, what else? I would probably say, uh, work on the bigger deals, right? Because for us, for example, uh, I can do I can do say, work my way to get like 40 apartments or 40 homes to manage, right? 40 different properties, but I can get one 40-unit building or a couple 40-unit buildings by working with somebody else like a broker or maybe some sort of affiliate and kind of adding on and helping them and learning that way. But now I have a bigger track record of bigger success and bigger portfolio. And that would go a long way versus me having, oh, I have, 4 homes that I manage. But if
Right.
I went to you and I said, hey, I have 4 40-unit apartments, that's 160 units. Now all of a
You
sudden
do.
it's like, they don't look at it as like, oh, you have 4 properties, or it's like, oh, you have 160 units, or a 40-unit building is worth, say, 12 million bucks. Now all of a sudden I have 50 million under management, whereas 4 homes might be, you know, 4 million, maybe 3 million, depending on what area, right?
Right. Right.
So
Right.
now my portfolio is all of a sudden 4 million or 50 million, right? So there's some perceived value and perspective on what you're working on and
Right.
what kind of scale it is. And that will bring in more, for us, it brings in kind of more money and more deals and more comfort with people who have bigger projects, which accelerates our growth and our success versus, smaller deals. Not to say that smaller deals are bad because they can lead to bigger deals,
Yeah.
but I, if I was new and starting out, I would not try to just go after small deals and try to work my way up because
Right.
it'll take much longer.
Right.
And I think it could be done faster.
Yeah. So don't be afraid of the big deals.
Don't be afraid of big deals, and don't be afraid to partner or ask for help from people that you know that can help you
Yeah.
understand how to service those big deals,
Yes.
right? Because
Yes.
it's not as hard as everyone thinks. At the end of the day, it just comes down to process, follow up, customer service. You're not going to know everything, but if you
Right.
do something wrong, you want to be able to say, "Hey, we got it, fix it, and it won't
Right.
happen again." And you adjust
Right.
your processes, and you just keep going.
Right. Right. And I think there's something about more experience here. You realize that people are more willing to help than you might have thought as a young person. You're afraid to ask for help,
Yeah,
you know,
the
or you're
ego.
afraid. Yeah. Yeah. Your ego
I,
gets in your way.
I got to posture up to everyone will think I'm like the man or I'm like this super successful thing, right?
Right. Right.
Whereas like a lot of people who have that, they don't want people to know. They just carry themselves in a way that they do it.
Right. Okay. Great. I think that's for anyone. I think. Um, okay. So I have a final question, but before I do that, I want to point people to your website, which is www.mcintirekingstone.com.
Yep.
Is that it's spelled right there in the background, right?
Yeah.
Um, and and then here's my last question, right? So, who made the biggest impact on your life, and what is the best thing you've learned from them? You can feel free to call them out. You can and then let them know, hey, I mentioned you on the podcast, right? So,
Um, I'd probably have to say my best friend Lance from college, and so he was an entrepreneur and started his first business from home, hosting company. And I just remember, and I've told many times, the story where he had a successful career as an entrepreneur, selling businesses, starting businesses, and he's always been like one step ahead, it seems like, right? Just in terms of like work-life balance. Like, oh yeah, he's been doing that. Like, how did he know? Right. Oh, it's like I'm working on trying to like, get this insurance and this stuff going. And it's like I'll throw it off against him. And it's like, oh yeah, he did that last year. Right. Or oh, I had a kid and I'm, setting up my 529 plan. I think I'm on top of it. He's like, oh, he set it up like 3 days after his kid was born, right? Or something like it's always like, how does he know? And so he always kind of drove me to, you know, not get caught up in, whether it's the social partying or just like the riffraff. He was always kind of like, yeah, that's fun. Like you can go out and do things or, you know, go places and hang out with friends. But it's always like business was a priority, family balance, all these other things were always a priority. And he was always kind of just setting the bar a little bit higher and a little bit higher. And then, the interesting too is by, hanging out and really just bonding, becoming great friends with him, the people that he hangs out with are all of a sudden kind of around. And then you start meeting and hanging out with more people that are kind of the same way. Everyone probably, you know, hears about, oh, it's the circle that you hang out with is so important. And, hang out with people that you want to be like, and this and that. A lot of times it's like, well, how do you do that, right? You just go and start, emailing and texting people. But, it's kind of like just like how the life path takes you, and
Right.
being able to recognize like who you're spending time and the conversations that you have. And, as the company grows, take on more responsibility, have family, your time, it's limited on what you can get back for yourself and who you spend time with. And so those relationships are the ones that I always kind of just like, hey, these are bonds that I've had for years and years, because I put energy and time, and I want to spend time with those people because they're always improving as well. And it's making
Right.
me a better person. It feels good.
Right. Awesome. Yeah. I always strive. I mean, it's easier said than done. Like they say, if you're the smartest person in a room, you're in the wrong place, right? But yeah, finding that person that you look up to, that's always, one step ahead, and having them around and their circle around is definitely a good motivation.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we've been talking to Josh McIntire, co-founder of McIntire Real Estate, managing over $1 billion in assets, a leader in tech security and the community in general, right? Josh, where can people learn more about you?
Yeah, go to our website, like you mentioned, McIntireKingstone.com. I'm on LinkedIn as well. And
Okay.
just launched our new website, myonsitemanager.com. So that's a good new business to help combat the increasing rents out there. And it's on my social media. I don't know if you
You
have
want
it or post it, but I don't go on it too much. But
to
I mean, I guess you could find me there.
you want to do a plug on My On-Site Manager? Like, what is it in a one short? Like,
Yeah, sure. Quick plug. I learned a long time ago that anyone who has a core business, you can really take that expertise and turn it into some sort of product, whether it's a physical product or an
right.
online product.
Yeah.
And so what we've done is we've created a software that helps manage and train resident managers, which in our industry are people who live at apartment buildings and they live on site, and they help run those apartments. And so it's a software to help train people who want to be managers and want to, get paid to work from home or get discounted rent or often free rent. But it is also for property owners that have managers, or property management companies that have managers, to help with their compliance and to help make sure that those managers are performing and they have ratings and compliance scores and things like that. So
Cool.
nothing out there like it. And, we're kind of pioneering that space and getting it launched, and we're excited.
Nice. Okay. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you for being our guest.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Raw Spotlight podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.